Hello and welcome to the official We Ball Final Mock Draft. I'm Luke Crummett. Joining me, as always, is one Tyler DeSena. Tyler, it's about that time.
It is. I mean, I don't know how confident I really am in this because, to be honest, nothing in this draft is truly chalk. And as much as we want to predict, Thursday night's going to be a lot of fun because, as far as we went through this mock draft, every single pick, I don't know if there was a single one past number one that we felt confident in. So I think it's going to be a fun process, and only a couple more days left here.
Yeah, we've almost made it, Tyler. Thursdays, we can touch it basically. And when this mock comes out, it will be Wednesday. You will be seeing this just one day prior to the NFL draft. Something crazy will probably happen as soon as we put this out, and it will all be wrong because of that. But we are going to get into it. This is our official prediction of what is going to happen on Thursday. This is not what we would do. This is what we believe will happen based on the NFL teams that are drafting at specific picks. There are trades involved, so we are going to get right into it because we got to burn through all 31 picks because Tyler's team likes to cheat. And number one overall, the Carolina Panthers. Tyler, my boy, my QB1, Bryce Young.
Yeah,
It had to be.
it has to be. I think that we've kind of come to the consensus that this is Carolina's consensus and that this is what they're going to do. I mean, we obviously before we thought CJ Stroud, but we're inching closer and closer to the draft. I think you said earlier, like while we were talking before this, doing this mock draft, that he was minus 1,300 to go number one.
Yes.
The odds are all in his favor, and it's a great pick for them. Obviously, your QB1, my QB2. So yeah, it makes sense. And as we move right along here to number two, this is where the chalk goes away because we got Will Levis rumors coming out today that he thinks he's going number one, and
He's telling people
he's the
telling his
favorite
aunt.
to go number two, but I just don't believe it. I know I think both of us collectively decided that we don't think he's necessarily going to, and
No.
that put us between Will Anderson and Tyree Wilson. And my brain kind of said, hey, it's been leaning Tyree Wilson for a lot of this time. Go with him. But I couldn't stay away from the guy who I think is the best defensive player in this class. And so do you and Will Anderson. So that's who we took at number two. I think that, like I said, best defensive player in this class. And, you said D'Amico Ryans being an Alabama guy. There's just too many connections there for that not
Nick
to be the pick at two. Yeah.
Yeah. He's my number one player in the class, Will Anderson Jr. He's a dog. Guy looks like a model. He's got all the gigs. He's got all the NIL deals, but he's a good football player, and we have gotten kind of sick of him. That doesn't happen with NFL teams. They don't get sick of talking about guys. They know who a good football player is, and they want to take him, and that is what Will Anderson is. Moving on to number three, we got to trade. All right. If you've watched our last few mocks, this is something we've been thinking about and talking about a lot. Even in our What Would You Do mocks, we've been thinking and talking about this trade because it's what we believe is going to happen truly. And it makes more sense for these two teams. We are trading down from 3 as Arizona to number 11, and we are receiving a first and then another first and some more on top of that because that's what it's going to take to get this pick. They're going to have to give up 3 top picks, basically. Not 3 first rounders, but 3 first or second rounders.
And hey, here's the thing. We're not here to predict the trades perfectly. No. We're here to predict the mock draft to our best of our ability. And since both of these teams only have 1 first round pick, it's not like we have to decipher things that are going to happen in round 1, except for the picks themselves. So Tennessee comes up to number 3. And this is something that a lot of people have kind of been speculating about, like them moving up. And, he didn't go number 1. So who goes number 3? None other than CJ Stroud. Coming off the board as QB2. A lot of people thought of him as QB2, and he's the safest quarterback pick in this draft, it certainly seems like. Has the highest floor. We've talked about it before. The accuracy is off the charts, and he'll be going to Tennessee. We don't really know what the future is with Ryan Tannehill, and I think it's a good destination for him.
Everybody knows that doing prospect interviews, talking on a podcast 2-3 times a week, it comes with a necessary confidence that you have to have. And one thing that really improves confidence is the new and improved Performance Package 4.0 by Manscaped. It has arrived, and oh man, is it a game changer. Inside this package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Reviver toner, Performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold all of these goodies. First off, the Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer is the future of grooming and, dare I say, the greatest ball trimmer ever. I am blown away by the performance and craftsmanship of this trimmer. Their 4th generation trimmer offers cutting edge ceramic blade to help reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. Their Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and also has a 4000K LED spotlight so you can get a more precise shave. Because this trimmer is waterproof, you can say goodbye to the mess on the bathroom floor. If you thought that was good but want to take your grooming even further to the next level, the Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker ears and nose hair trimmer. The Weed Whacker is also waterproof and provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps reduce nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate nose holes. The Crop Preserver below the waist deodorant and Crop Reviver below the waist toner will change the way you approach your daily hygiene routine. Manscaped even threw in 2 free gifts in this Performance Package 4.0, the boxers and the shed travel bag. Bring your comfort in boxers to another level. It's time to take care of yourself. Go to manscaped.com and get 20% off with code WEBALL. That is WEBALL, WEBALL. Make sure to use it on your next purchase with Manscaped for 20% off.
And as we move to number 4 here,
We got a quarterback.
We do, and it's kind of the one that a lot of people have been thinking all along. Are you
Listen?
Go for it.
As the great Connor Rogers and Tampa Bay Trey have been saying for what feels like forever, Will Levis, you are an Indianapolis Colt. I had to do it. It just feels like it's gonna happen, man. Like every sign is pointing in that direction in big neon letters, like a bar in the South. It is a it's a ridiculously perfect fit, and it makes so much sense with Chris Ballard that I feel like it has to happen at this point.
My heart was going AR the whole way. My
Stick your
heart's
Ds,
like,
Tyler.
take AR, and I was like, the last time I went with my heart, it was the Will Anderson pick. I'm like, let's balance it out a little bit. Let's do what I think is correct this time. It's Will Levis. It seemed like you said, Will Levis, you are an Indianapolis Colt. We've been hearing it on the NFL Stock Exchange for like months now. We've been hearing it almost everywhere for months now. It makes sense. And number 5,
rough. It's rough.
Well, this next one, we had 2 guys in mind. One being Tyree Wilson, the other being Anthony Richardson. And we did a lot looking into this pick. We even looked at the pictures that Seattle took with each quarterback to see who was smiling the most in each picture. And Seattle was certainly smiling in the Anthony Richardson picture. But picture Seattle's war room and Pete Carroll, who's the oldest active coach in the NFL at 71 years old. And he's sitting here thinking, I want to go win a Super Bowl right now. We just locked up Geno Smith. And then you've got guys telling him, well, the best way to go do that is take a quarterback who you might not win with for 3 or 4 years. You think he's going to listen to that?
71, man. Bro's going to be in a retirement home in 3 years.
He needs to win now, and I think he believes that he has the team to win now, and they're just a few pieces away, and that's what Tyree Wilson can be for them. Obviously, a raw player at edge, but somebody who already has great run stoppability, somebody who is just absolutely huge, and that's what Seattle likes in their edges, is just huge, massive football players.
Love freaks. Tyler DeSena loves freaks.
And so does Seattle. And it just makes too much sense.
Next up, this is a pick that, if we went back a few months, felt like chalk. It felt like this was guaranteed, signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. But now it doesn't feel so chalk. Now it feels like Tyler and I may or may not have sat here because of how this board fell, because of what we know. We sat here for probably 25 minutes on this pick. This pick alone.
This was the hardest pick to make in this top 10 for us. The rest of them, it was like, deciding between a couple of guys. And the thing
anything could happen here.
Yes, they could. I mean, just a couple of the options that we ran through. AR is still on the board. Do they go with him? Do they take Gonzalez? Because that was the one that we thought was chalk. Do they trade down? Do they take, we have no
Jalen Carter.
Do they take
Devon
Jalen Carter, who's
Witherspoon.
still on the board? Witherspoon, who everyone's speculating might be the first corner off the
They
board.
apparently really like Nolan Smith. Like, there's so many options here.
There are so many guys, and I think we looked at Gonzalez, who we ended up taking. We took Christian Gonzalez, a corner out of Oregon, and we said, we don't want to look back at this draft and be like, this is a pick we had 100% locked in August, in
Jesus,
March.
you're
I
really
don't even
having
know what
this
I'm
locked
saying.
in.
I meant to say March. I am so out of it this week. Draft week is taking a toll, ladies and gentlemen. But we don't want to say that this is a pick we had locked in March and then just be completely wrong and take somebody else. So we're going to stick with what we believe to be the chalk, or at least what we believed to be the chalk, and go with Christian Gonzalez. And that's kind of where things get weird.
I don't like it, Tyler. Listen, this is how the board fell because this is how we believe at least the first 5 picks are going to go. I'm confident in our first 5 picks, at least what I think.
Somewhat confident, at least.
At
tiny
least.
bit. Like,
It may not be locked,
Which,
but I'm confident. I have a feeling that could happen. This is weird.
In this draft,
I don't like this.
In this draft, there's no such thing as confidence. We have the lowest amount of confidence in everything that's to come. There was this one specifically. And
at number 7,
he's my QB1. Yeah, you can go.
At number 7, it is your QB1. Everybody who's listening to this podcast hears you blabber on and on about him all the time. But it's Anthony Richardson. They signed Gino. They signed Jimmy G.
We both can't speak. It's bad.
To a longer-term deal. It's 3 years or something like that. This is a spot where he can sit and develop. And we know that Josh McDaniel wanted to do that running offense with Cam Newton, and it worked at first. You can slowly implement that, burn that into Anthony Richardson's brain, and then when he comes in, make the flip. He'll be ahead of the game with that offense, and the offense will have to catch up to him, and he can grow along with everyone. It just feels like it could work out. And
here's the thing with Richardson is the reason that the offense didn't really work with Cam is that the running was good, but Cam was beat up. The arm was practically falling off at that point. It was like he was bouncing every throw in the dirt. It was a really rough year for Cam. He got COVID too. Right when they were getting hot, he got COVID, and then he missed a large portion of when they were just getting going. And that's not going to happen to Anthony Richardson. He's not the shoulder. There's no shoulder problems. This dude has the best pure arm in the draft class. So as much as I don't like him, just the idea of him in Las Vegas, I like the fit scheme wise because we saw what he did with Cam. Moving on, this is the one that there's a little bit more confidence here because
we're turning it back up a little bit
because we've been hearing about Jalen Carter for a long time, and that's who we took at number 8. We took Jalen Carter to the Falcons.
He's an Atlanta Falcon,
and we've heard way too much about Jalen Carter, falling down the board, but there just seems to be this mindset that he's not going to get out of the top 10. And I think this is a perfect scenario for him. I was listening to a podcast. I can't exactly put my finger on who it was, but they were talking about Jalen Carter, and they were saying, could you imagine a better room for him to go to learn and develop than being underneath Grady Jarrett and Calais Campbell?
Oh, dude, stop it.
NFL, and Calais Campbell is the staple of NFL veterans. So if there's if there's somebody who is going to help almost not be a big brother, but kind of, introduce him to the league and get him going as this interior monster. And if it's going to be a player, Calais Campbell is the answer.
Listen, there's a lot going on with Jalen Carter that we don't know, but it has been long enough where we haven't heard anything and it's been radio silence that I feel confident in with him going in the top 10. This is another guy that I think has to go in the top 10 here at 9. And because of that, we're making a trade. We are trading down from 11 because we believe, we don't really know why, but we think the Cards really want Bijan Robinson. They're going to jump up. They're going to use 96 because they have 2 third-rounders. They're going to trade number 96 and pick 11 for pick 9 from the Bears, and they're going to draft Bijan Robinson. You get him in that running attack, that Philly-style offense that they're going to have. You can punt to next year because Kyler's going to miss half the season. and then you can trade Kyler, gather more capital, gather more picks.
Or if Kyler stays,
Yeah,
which
even if he
like
stays, you give him weapon X.
you give him the biggest. There's no bigger superstar type player in this draft than Bijan Robinson that isn't a quarterback. Like, there's
Yes.
no bigger name brand value on the board than Bijan Robinson, and you're gonna have to make a splash in order to keep Kyler Murray. Like, for him to not want to ask out potentially with the lack of talent you have on defense right now. And as much as a defensive pick might be the way you guys go, we haven't heard much from Arizona.
We
That's
haven't.
radio silence. And that just leads me to believe that, there's a little smoke, and where there's smoke, there might be fire. We move on. Number 10, this one I feel a lot better about. Obviously the Eagles were able to keep both of their corners, which was pretty awesome this free agency. They did a really good job securing the guys that they wanted to keep. But one guy, I mean, like, we know that Darius Slay and James Bradbury are both getting older, and we know that they're not going to be around there forever. And the thing that the Eagles do is that they did it with when they drafted Jordan Davis and they lose Hargrave. They did it when they drafted Nakobe Dean and they lose TJ Edwards. They draft guys a year ahead of time because they want to like keep those pipelines going. I've talked about it every single mock draft. And Devon Witherspoon's still on the board, and there's not a better fit for a Fangio style defense that they run around there in Philly. It's Devon Witherspoon. I don't think there's much else to say about this. Continue the pipeline at corner.
So then we move along to, the Bears, who traded down a second time. We know Ryan Poles wants to gain capital. That is his thing. That's what he wants to do. That's how he wants to build his team. He's committed to his quarterback, and because of that, I believe he will go with a pure tackle because they signed a guard in free agency. All of these things. We've heard that they really like Darnell Wright. I don't think you go Darnell Wright at 11. I think they would have to trade it down further, but nobody would come up. And for that reason, they take Broderick Jones, get them a surefire tackle. He might not have the upside of Darnell Wright, but he's a good base level tackle that can do everything you need when it comes to blocking for one Justin Fields.
Yeah,
This
it's
next
a
pick's
really good
chalk.
pick. It had to be a tackle at 11. We just knew that. I mean, this team, their biggest problem was O-line, and we talked about the weapons, and they got DJ Moore. This next pick
Chalk.
just feels like chalk. It feels like
chalk pick.
There is not a better fit, I think, for receiver in this class at all than Jackson Smith-Njigba, JSN, going to Houston. I think you're setting up whoever your next quarterback is perfectly. There's rumors about Trey Lance being traded, and what would be a better spot for him than, a former, coach that he's worked with in the past. But that's not the point. Whoever the quarterback is going to be, JSN is a great fit there. And honestly, he's a top 10 player in this draft class. And it's just, in my opinion, like a best player available type of situation. And at a position of need, it fits both, like you said, pretty chalk. And I think the next pick is one that we kind of feel, strongly about as well, with the Packers here now at 13. They've now moved up because of the Aaron Rodgers deal. They're sitting here with their pick of the litter.
I don't know why they felt so strongly about moving up. It could be a JSN thing, but I don't think they didn't like jump Houston. So unless they're trading up again to get JSN, which I don't see happening, I think this is Miles Murphy, and I think this has always been Miles Murphy, in my opinion. Now they're just going to have to pay him a little bit more. But you didn't have to deal with as many picks in the back end. You guarantee that you're going to get your guy by moving up a little bit more. I think this is the highest Miles Murphy could go, and I think this is where he should go. It makes the most sense profile-wise. It makes the most sense need-wise. This is the right pick for them. If they were going to go Hendon Hooker, I think they would have tried to move back instead of moving 2 spots forward. Now it's harder to get rid of that pick. I just think this makes the most sense for them.
Yeah, and there's not much else to say there. And you take an edge there. And, New England, we've heard some things about them liking Nolan Smith. And it just feels like, with the athletic profile of Nolan Smith, that he fits what New England would want, and also is just such a freak that I don't think he's going to fall much farther down the board. So he goes here at 14. Obviously, New England has some edge guys. They've got Matthew Judon, who's been an absolute monster. They've got a solid rotation, but imagine going in and getting another guy that has the ceiling where he could potentially be, not a Matthew Judon like role type of player, but somebody that you could just line up on the other side and say, go eat. And I think he's one of the few edges in the class that you can say that about, that's the ceiling. So I think that's a pretty good pick. And now the Jets are on the board with the pick that they've gotten back in this little Rodgers pick swap.
Listen, this could be Darnell Wright. This could be Paris Johnson. I don't think they want a big boy. To be honest with you. I think Salah is done with that. He doesn't want to deal with it. He's already dealt with it once. He had to come in and he basically adopted a big boy. It didn't work out. He adopted a mountain and he couldn't make it move. So he's going to go with a guy who can move all over the offensive line in one Peter Skoronsky. That was a bar by me. I would just like to say somebody clip that because that was cold. But Peter Skoronsky makes a lot of sense here. They can move him inside. They can play him at tackle. They can fill a hole for Aaron Rodgers with this pick and say, hey, listen, you tell us where you like him more during training camp, and that is where we will train him to be our stud. Works out for everyone.
Yep. I think there's not much else to say there. And after the tackle run, I kind of said, we were talking about this while we were doing this mock draft, that these kind of picks just look like they're going to be a lot of corners and a lot of tackles. And we're onto the corners portion here a little bit, at least with this pick. We were thinking Joey Porter for Washington. I put that out there a lot of times. But what's a bigger connection than getting a guy from Maryland to come play for the Washington Redskins, the Washington Commanders? I said something else. You get the point. We move right. We're taking Deonte Banks here. And
that was awesome. Your face, bro. Moving.
I feel really good about it. That's somebody who I feel like has one of the highest ceilings in the class at corner. We've talked about him a bunch. The dude's just an absolute like track star when it comes to running and can run with just about anybody. And has shown flashes of being able to, go up against just about anybody. And, there's not much else to say. I think that corner was like your number one need. That secondary is very barren. And if you want to win with, I guess, Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett, you've got to do it in the defensive backfield.
All right, moving right along. This is a pick where I think you need to go O-line with the Steelers. You got to get Najee some help. You got to get Kenny Pickett some help. That's the only way you're going to be able to continue to capitalize on having Mike Tomlin as your head coach is building through the offensive line. His defense will always be good no matter what the personnel is. They will always make plays. You need to set the offense up for the best possible offense they can be. And the way to do that is Paris Johnson Jr. Get yourself a blue chip tackle who can kind of, come in and fill a role right away. And it can take some pressure off of Kenny Pickett. It can take some pressure off of Najee Harris in that run game. It just makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. And another pick that makes sense is this next one for Detroit.
Yeah, we've been putting interior defensive linemen here. And we really liked those picks. We liked Brian Brzee here a lot. But here's the thing. You can do that, but it's a lot better and a lot easier to get a serviceable interior defensive lineman, I feel like, than it is to get somebody who you feel like can be an elite edge rusher. And we've been talking about Lucas Van Ness. I mean, a couple of months ago, people were talking about him going in the top 10, and now he's available at 18, and you just drafted Hutchinson, and you've got Houston, who had a really good season last year. But imagine being able to add to that rotation and getting a guy who you feel like can just be a great edge. Lucas Van Ness, he just seems like a lion. There's not much else to say. I don't think there's a guy who seems more like a Detroit Lion that's on the board than Lucas Van Ness, and that's exactly who we went with.
All right, listen. Some people might not like this 19th pick. I really like this 19th pick. Hendon, no, I'm playing. It is his Tennessee teammate, Darnell Wright, excuse me. Listen, now you have bookend tackles. You can go and you can rip this team to shreds this year. You can move forward, draft a quarterback next year in a loaded quarterback class where if you finish the same spot, you might still be able to get a top-tier quarterback. There's a lot of sleeper guys in next year's class. This is the move if you want to build for the future. If you think you can still win now, I guess go get Hendon Hooker, but I don't think he's worth it. Take his teammate and run with it.
Yeah, rumor has it there's been somebody who's been documenting a lot on the 2024 draft class and is dropping something soon. So all I'm saying is keep your eyes open on this account and on our, stuff that's coming. And we're moving right along. And we've got pick number 20. And this was where it got kind of weird
It's
because,
so weird.
we've been thinking maybe an interior defensive lineman, but 2 picks on the defensive line seems a little weird. And, we're thinking maybe corner, but we don't really know how great the corners fit. It's all just kind of odd. And I figured, hey, Noah Fant's a good tight end, but you want somebody who's probably a better blocker in that offense and somebody who can do a little bit of everything. And Michael Mayer just seems like a Seahawk. And I think that teams are still going to value Michael Mayer really high. He's not, my tight end 1 or anything. I think I have him tight end 3, but I think this is a player who the NFL probably values higher than a lot of people do because of the fact that he has such a diverse skill set and can do a little bit of everything. And I think that that's exactly what they're going to want in Seattle. They could use one more weapon, and that's exactly what he is.
We got a chalk pick here. I'm going to be honest with you. Because we know Alex Katzen, this has been chalk for us for months. This is what's going to happen. It's Zay Flowers. It's the Chargers. It is the perfect fit when it comes to wide receivers at this stage of the draft. Listen, I know he's small, but he doesn't play small. He can play outside. He can play inside. He can make big plays. He can help you in the short game. He can do a little bit of everything. I think he's worth this pick. I think he's more worth this pick than a guy like Jordan Addison. I don't think Quentin Johnston fits here with the Chargers, and I think wide receivers a need that that they will be willing to take a risk on if Michael Mayer's not there. If Michael Mayer's there, they're probably going to take Michael Mayer.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's between those two, and Zay Flowers, it just felt like has been the pick for so long. We got to go back to it. We went back to a lot of classics here, but here's one that we kind of came across recently as a fit that we really liked. And Luke made the pick last time we talked about it. We were like, this isn't a move that's going to bring Lamar back. But at the same time, I think you feel pretty confident that Lamar is coming back at some point.
Yes.
And if that's the case, you can't be having games where, God forbid Marlon Humphrey goes down again. You can't have games like you had against the Dolphins where your secondary was just getting absolutely toasted.
Jalen Armour Davis, what a dog.
Well, he won't be getting as much playing time if this happens. And we're picking Joey Porter Jr. here. He feels like a Raven. Like, I know that's been a lot of the analysis here is this player feels like this.
But that's what the draft is.
But the AFC North, wow. AFC North football is physical, it's mean, and it's a lot of press coverage and man. And that's exactly what Joey Porter's good at. He gets physical on line of scrimmage, and he is not afraid of anybody. And I think that that's the mentality that they want in Baltimore. And it's just a cornerback that I think could really help out a secondary that had a lot of problems last year and was a large reason that they didn't have as much success as they hoped for.
The current defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings is one Brian Flores. Brian Flores wanted nothing more than Minkah Fitzpatrick to get in the box and just make plays and do things in that defense that nobody else is able to do. That didn't happen. He had to trade him. He then ended up poaching him again, which is hilarious to me.
But, and Minkah had a fantastic season last year to the point where people were talking about him as like a defensive player of the year candidate early on. So there's a little connection here.
That's null and void. Nobody cares.
Exactly.
This is what people care about. This pick right here is Brian Branch. He is Minkah, but he likes to stick his nose into things. It's what he's best at. He can play nickel corner, which they need corner help anyways. They need coverage help anyways. He can also play he can play up high. He can play down in the box. He can play with his nose in the run game. He can play everywhere across the field. I think his combine numbers didn't help him, but I don't think they were supposed to help him, let's be honest. He didn't need good combine numbers, but everyone's kind of forgotten about Brian Branch because of that. We were talking about him going 8 before the combine. We need to remember that. I think this is a good fit. I think this is about where he should go, being an Alabama fan, having watched him, but also being an evaluator and scouting him. This is where I believe Brian Branch should go, and I think this is what will happen, one and the same.
Brian Flores was extremely excited to get his hands on Minkah Fitzpatrick in Miami and be like, hey, you should gain some weight, play in the box, you'll be elite. And Minkah Fitzpatrick said, no, I'm not putting on weight and I'm not playing in the box. I want to play free safety and I want to play nickel corner and I don't really want to play, strong safety type role. Brian Branch is more than willing to do that. And I think it's an awesome fit. Another fit that I think is really good is this next one for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This team needed a corner, and honestly, the way that their roster is constructed, I think they need somebody who can step in right away and is really good at a lot. And somebody who's really good technically is Cam Smith. And that's who we're taking right here. He's one of the best technical corners in this class, somebody who can absolutely dominate. And that's it. Cam Smith, welcome to the Jaguars.
All right, this had to happen. It felt meant to be. Brian Dable is going to put on the I can fix him shoes, and he is going to take Quentin Johnson. He's going to make him a deep threat. He doesn't catch through his hands. He doesn't catch strong, but he's a really good. He's just a different type of big wide receiver that we're not used to seeing, and I think that's scaring teams when it shouldn't necessarily scare teams off. He is good enough to play in the NFL Football League. NFL Football League. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very good football player. He deserves to go higher than this, but this is where I believe he will go, and I think it is a perfect fit for him.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys needed a wide receiver. You needed somebody who can play on the outside. There's no better fit for that than Quentin Johnston. With this next pick, Jerry Jones and his quote today where he said, "It's not drafting that's our problem, it's coaching." That was pretty funny when he said it right in front of Mike McCarthy. They did laugh about it, but still. They like taking guys who are like,
Hollywood, Showtime,
fun athletic freak types. And this team just lost Dalton Schultz. And the first thing they said when they lost Kellen Moore, too, was, hey, we don't like the fact that Moore was passing so much. We want to get back to running the football. And I think the number one way to do that is getting a guy who is my tight end one and is essentially just a sixth tackle. And that's Darnell Washington.
Who can catch, by the way.
Yeah, who was like one of the, best when it comes to like yards per target, and all of his per target stats were phenomenal. It's Darnell Washington. Go get him in Dallas, go maul teams, go run the ball, and go finally maximize this window that you guys have been talking about for the last decade.
Well, we move on to Buffalo, who also needs to maximize their window. And I know a lot of people are very high on Osiris Torrance out of Florida. There is another guard that I personally am higher on, and I also think the NFL is going to be higher on because he's a bit slimmer, because he can move a little bit better, and that is Steve Avila. Avila's really good at, moving, staying with his man, putting hands on a guy, getting his hands up quick. They need someone who is going to create space for not only Josh Allen, but their run game in Buffalo, and that is what Steve can do.
Yeah, he's a great fit. A guy who's worked with Duke Manyweather, and Duke, continually puts his clips out. He puts his clips out on Twitter all the time, and Duke has pull in the NFL. There's no more respected offensive line coach, kind of off-site guy than Duke. He could definitely have a job if he wanted to go get one in the NFL immediately. But we have another pick that we really like, and this one is one that we've been talking about now for a couple mocks, and it's the Bengals here, sitting at 28. And you lose Hayden Hurst, but you can go out and just say, hey, you know what? You can't guard our best four guys. We've got Jamar Chase. We've got T. Higgins. We've got Tyler Boyd. And now you have Dalton Kincaid, who I'm drafting right here. Let's go out and be the best passing team in football. And the way to do that is to get the best pass-catching weapon still left on the board and the best pass-catching tight end in this entire draft class. It's Dalton Kincaid.
Is Dalton Kincaid. Moving on, they lose their D-line their D-line coach, I believe, to a division rival. He's now a defensive coordinator over there, but they still need to build on that defensive line. It's aging. It's not great right now. I thought this might be an edge, but we went with a defensive lineman because this guy should not still be on the board. Former number one recruit, had a rough year this year, had a rough year last year, but he has all the talent in the world. We got to see during the combine, and there's obvious flashes on tape, and that is Brian Brzee out of Clemson. Listen, things happen to a player that they cannot control, and that is what happened to Brian Brzee this year. He's going to be back to normal next year, and I can't wait to see what he does in the NFL. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and he's got time, I think. Like you said, somebody who can be better in the NFL than they were their last year at college. And a lot of those Clemson defensive players, to be honest with you, regardless of the outside situations, did not have their best years last year. Defensive scheme change, a lot of things happened, and I think Brian Brzee can be a really good football player. Another guy who I think can be a really good football player is somebody who could be added to the Philadelphia Eagles and that disgusting O-line they have up front. They were already the best rushing team in the NFL last year. We're going to make them a little bit better. You lose Miles Sanders, you bring in Rashad Penny, you've got Boston Scott, but neither of those guys are either big enough in Boston Scott's case or stay healthy enough in Rashad Penny's case to be an RB1. So you're set up for a committee. And who would be the best slasher to add to this committee? Somebody who, you pound the rock 4 or 5 times with Penny and you're just like, hey, we want to go get 30 now. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. He's the most explosive running back in this draft class, somebody who's been compared to Jamal Charles, and for good reason with his movement skills. The dude's different, and in any other class, we'd be talking about him as an awesome running back prospect, but because Bijan's in this class, we simply
don't talk about him at all.
And there's been rumors that he might go in the first round, Jahmyr Gibbs, so we're going to do it, and we're going to take him right here with the second to last pick. Welcome to Philly.
I think he could become a wide receiver 1, and that's not something we talk about enough because everyone's like, hey, Bijan's running back 1. You knew what I meant. But everyone's like, hey, Bijan could be the best running back we've ever seen. Nobody talks about the fact that Jahmyr Gibbs could be a top running back in the NFL. Moving right along, this is a guy who I think could become a very, very good edge rusher. He's smart with his movements. He's got a pass rush plan. He's a super good athlete. He was great down in Mobile. He did all right at the combine. Apparently, he crushed interviews. Very cool guy to talk to, and that is Keon White, edge out of Georgia Tech. Moved to Georgia Tech from Old Dominion because he wanted to do real estate, and then was like, oh, I could be an NFL player too. And it's clearly worked out for him as we have him going in the first round. But, Casey, that is it for our mock draft. Tyler, any final thoughts on this class? We get to say goodbye.
The one thing I want to say is, as we wrap up here this draft season, we're appreciative of everyone who has, gone out, subscribed, watched our content. And I think we're all really excited for the fact that this class, like we said, we simply don't know what's going to happen on Thursday night. You're going to be seeing this on, Draftsmith's Eve here the night before. And I think we're in for a really fun one. And there's a lot of fun stuff coming to this channel in the future. The draft might end on Saturday, but we don't stop. We've got 24 content coming your way. We've got other content coming your way. And we've got just so much stuff. Make sure to be on the lookout because May 1st is going to be a huge day for Weeball. The Weeball Network launches. And with that, so much more content that we haven't even touched on yet. So all I'm saying is make sure to be on the lookout for that. And we are so grateful for each and every one of you who has stuck with us through this draft process.
All right, now I get to do my spiel. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're on Spotify, leave a good rating. Oh, wait, this is probably not going on Spotify because I don't have the RSS feed yet. But who cares? You can still leave 5 stars in the comments of this YouTube video, I guess. Go for it, people. We thank you so much for watching, listening, whatever you're doing while you're paying attention to us. We appreciate it. Thank you, and we ball.